Welcome to Ridgcrest Talk. We're talking with Rockwell from Trouts we had on another episode, but today we're talking about some of the outdoor activities to do in the area. And one of the great things that I recall way back even in the 70s is going up to Mount Whitney, driving up about 80 miles up 395 to Lone Pine, and finding that little left turn in the middle of town, Whitney Portals Road.
Absolutely.
And off you go up to the mountaintop. And so you got a little bit more experience hiking than that. Why don't you tell us a little bit, what got you started hiking Mount Whitney?
You know, I had a bad night. Isn't that how all good experiences start? I had given a car.
It was time to get away.
Yeah, I'd given the keys to a car to my band leader, great guy, one of the best talents in Bakersfield, I think, Don Kidwell, him and his wife. And all of a sudden, I went out the front door, and the car was vandalized months after I'd lent it to him. And I woke up the next, we caught the person who did it, and I thought, you know, anytime you have an obstacle, you look at it as a blessing, and then somebody enlightened me and said, you know what, God's pruning you. Look at it as something that's going to make you stronger. So the next morning I woke up, and there's something on like the Nat Geo channel that's talking about the tallest point in the contiguous United States is only 75 miles, as a crow flies, from the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. So I look, I start looking at myself, looking at my life, and thought, I'm going to go climb Mount Whitney. So Mount Whitney was only 4.5 hours from Bakersfield. So literally within 6-8 weeks, and I got everybody telling me, Rockwell, you just don't climb Mount Whitney. I said, okay, I better go on some TV and radio shows and commit to it, and I'll make sure my drive is what gets me up there. So I don't just climb Mount Whitney, I bring a guitar on my back. And that was kind of amazing to bring items with me. And I had no idea what I was on for. It's something to take very serious. It is life or death if you're not prepared. So now I've tackled the mountain 15 times. I've summited, I think, 7 or 8 times. And every mountain, just like Shannon Grove's assistant, Javier Reyes says, this is every time you get on this mountain, it's a different mountain. What an absolute blessing to be up there. In a white room, I could stare at a wall for 30 seconds and be bored. I could stare at rocks on Whitney from the campgrounds and stare for days because it's so spiritual. It is so godly. It is such a miracle.
Now, oftentimes the guests will say something that if I don't come back and address it, it just kind of goes by
the wayside.
And people don't catch it. But what you said was actually extremely important. It's what you said is every time you go to that mountain, it's different.
Absolutely. My world's unique. I have been a first responder, and I'm not law enforcement, but I'm just trying to be a responsible person. In my 15 climbs, it's probably resulted in situations where I'm a first responder, first or second, to probably 12 lives or more. It's amazing. The flash flood that took out my car, the Dodge Charger on 395, was my second climb in 9 days. We got hit by a 115-mile-an-hour mudslide. I think 30 miles south of Olanchi or so. 3 people's families were notified they were passed away. Went in the desert, found them. Well, it's like pulling teeth getting people to help. People down the road here on the way back from Whitney, Polly and Lou, 73 and 82 years old. They got in a car accident at Weldon on the way back. I was asleep. A friend was driving and pulled them out of their jackknife truck that was pulling a 27-foot trailer, and was blessed to build a great relationship with them. There's so many great stories. The fatalities, unfortunate fatalities, back injuries. But every trip, every climb is a different climb.
Right. I think people at home are sitting there going, fun. This guy's talking about all these accidents.
This isn't fun. When you have a challenge like this, you have the opportunity to really help somebody.
But the other part of that is you have to be prepared, and you have to have that spirit that you're going to take on whatever happens.
People pass people at the side of the road. Not always should we stop. You have to be safe and responsible, use good judgment. But I tend to be the last one off the mountain because I love those sunset shots. I love what I get to absorb from the Mount Whitney descent, and as well as the climb. Every step is something very empowering of God and life up there. It's amazing. From the portals, which is kind of your base camp right there, to the top and back is about 22 miles. And I've done the Grand Canyon now 3 times. First time was a double bring people out. And when you get tired at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you don't get to go downhill to go home. You have to climb a mountain to get out. So where I've taken Kenyon Sills of Next Step CrossFit and Kenyon Sills Enterprises in Bakersfield, who's this GQ guru of fitness. He's amazing. What a heart on this man. And he'd done Mount Whitney the last year and a half or so ago. And about halfway through Grand Canyon, I said, so which one was harder? He says, oh, definitely Whitney. So 3/4 of the way, Rockwell, I've changed my mind. The Grand Canyon is so much harder. So I can't wait to do the Grand Canyon in the next week or two. I had planned to do it yesterday on Easter, didn't get to do it, and God had a different plan for me. But Whitney is something you have to do in your lifetime.
Right, and that is actually saying something. I guess coming up the Grand Canyon is more like being a football player in that fourth quarter when
Absolutely.
everything's on the line, but
Yeah.
you're just dead tired and it's just getting harder and harder to go. Now, when you go to Mount Whitney, obviously Whitney Portals, I've been up there, just
Right.
beautiful falls there. You can take the young kids, and there's a little pond that you can
Sure,
fish in.
Lone Pine Lake.
Little restaurant there with some
Yeah.
huge hamburgers. I just remember, I think we bought one hamburger for the family of 4.
Sure.
And but then when you hike up there, are you taking a couple of days, or are you just doing a one-day hike? Or how do you do that?
Generally, I like the one-day hike. I like to go up and back. And also, I have a lot of obligations with people and charities and family and my mom and such, so it's harder for me to get the few days away. I do recommend for people to go up on a few-day hike, though. Get on the website, get in the lottery, get your permits. You do need permits for even anything past, I think it's a couple of miles on the mountain up there. You have to have that.
See, that's the difference. When I went,
Just went.
last time I hiked, I went up to the second lake, I think it was.
Sure,
Spent
sure.
the night in '84.
Oh, gotcha.
And so we're talking, what is that now? 31 years ago.
Sure. So the rules might have changed since then.
Yeah, it's a little bit more
Sure.
coordinated effort, I guess.
You bet.
So they have to get on the internet, and they have to kind of get registered before they can go up
It
there.
really helps. Preparation's everything out there, and you can also go to the check-in station. It's kind of their visitor station on the way in to Lone Pine on the right-hand side. Get there as early as possible, because there are a lot of people who don't show up for their passes, or they'll overbuy passes and not. And there's people that'll show up and say, "What? There's snow on the top," and they'll not do the trip at all. So they've kind of wasted thousands of dollars even getting there. And the elevation rentals downtown, they're a great resource to call for information on the climb. Be current, be informed.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break right there. We're getting ready for our first break. Mount Whitney, just 80 miles from Ridgcrest, a great place that everybody at least should go to the portals. But we're going to talk some more about getting up to the higher elevations. Ridgcrest Talk with Rockwell from Bakersfield talking about Mount Whitney. Be right back. And welcome back to Ridgcrest Talk. Your host, Paul Vender. If we're talking hiking, whether you're going down into the Grand Canyon and hiking back out, or where you're going up to Mount Whitney, which is just here in Lone Pine. And I have been to Mount Whitney as a child, and then also in '84, I came back from the officer school of the Marine Corps and took my 12-year-old brother up the mountain.
Nice.
It was kind of sad for him. I think I was ready to be the drill sergeant.
Wow.
And then what happened is halfway up, he was out of energy, so I picked him up and carried him up to the lake. And we had a good time spending the night, and real memorable. Anytime, like you said, every time you go up the mountain is a different experience.
Absolutely.
And so when you've actually going up the hike, I mean, you talk about being prepared as far as being ready to help other people and checking in with the authorities, the people there in
Sure.
Lone Pine. What is it that you actually bring that you find are like the bare necessities, or do you bring lots of extra stuff? How does that work?
You know, I bring more than most people do. And first of all, you know, it's being in shape. And some of the mistakes that I've made or seen people made is I'll drink maybe too much of a power drink, which would be like a Gatorade, which are good, and a Powerade. But there was one trip where I drank nothing but that. Well, that doesn't get you very far. If you're going to drink that at all, you're going to drink about 1 to 5 of the waters. So you're going to have 5 waters to maybe 1 of those. It doesn't necessarily let your body absorb all the moisture of the water that you need. So when anybody gives you advice, also do some more research on it, because things do change. And I don't know everything about climbing Whitney. I just know about my experiences and the tragedies and the circumstances that help other people be more successful. I eat a lot of granola and trail mix on there. I boil a few small potatoes, an egg or 2. I don't eat a lot on the trip. I build up on carbs the night before or so I might even have some chocolate donuts. Careful though, because when you bring them to your friends, like I was with Javier and Daryl File from a Beta Weed down in Bakersfield, and I brought a box of donuts. We were there at the campgrounds for a few minutes, and a big black bear wanted those chocolate Hostess donuts better, more than we did.
You didn't wrestle him for
I
the
didn't
donut?
wrestle him though. I had my Glock right there, but but nobody was in imminent danger, and those donuts were just, he put them to good use. How's that? So it's eating well and making sure that you're really acclimated for the height, the elevation. I've seen people really have impaired judgment and balance at the 9,000, at the 9,000, 10,000 foot level out there. And some people who live at 9,000 or 10,000 will even have challenges at the 10,000, 11,000 foot elevations. And there's been some challenging moments to convince people to sit, to relax. The Japanese gentleman that went to heaven about a year and a half ago, my buddy Garrett and I were up there when that had happened. And he had made it to the top, summited, which is your highest point, came back and he was halfway to the crest when he had fell to his death. So it is something to take very serious. Don't just think because you're in the area and have a good pair of sneakers that you can make it to the top. I wear something I'd never heard of 2 years ago, Hoka's, H-O-K-A, sneakers, and I get them at Soul to Soul in Bakersfield at the Marketplace area. And I literally, when I put these on, I live in my Hoka's now. I went out and did a marathon 2-3 weeks later, and I'm not a runner, and I held two guitars. I had a guitar in my gig bag, guitar signed by William Shatner in my hand, and I did 26.2 miles with two charities following as pilot vehicles for the Healing Horses and Armed Forces Foundation up in, our charity up in Tehachapi, California. So every time I climb Mount Whitney, I usually carry 1 to 2 guitars, and guys like Michael Reagan and people like that will have signed it, and certainly William Shatner. So it makes for some great photographs for Red, White, and Blues, and enables us to contribute to charities.
Now you mentioned seeing a black bear right there at the base.
At the base.
And then what about like having a dog? Can you take your dog up there with you?
You know, I've only seen dogs one time up there, and it was probably one of my last trips up there. It's not recommended, but of course if somebody has a service dog, I am sure that that would be certainly a good thing. I'm bringing a gentleman this year, his one of his bucket list dreams, and I love to help people with their bucket list dreams. So if my phone number again, I'll give it to you if you have that need, a desire. He's beyond legally blind, and I understand he's one of the heads of a local blind organization down in Bakersfield. His name's Dane, and he came up to me about 2 months ago, and he says, I want to climb Mount Whitney, Rockwell. He says, I really want to accomplish that. So I just think, well, that's just something that we're going to do together, and absolutely love that.
Now there's an energy I'm feeling here with Mount Whitney, is that
Yes.
it's not just a climb that you're doing, but when you go do something, you want to bring your friends along and invite other people to come with you.
I love helping people. One of my hiking partners is Stephanie Eldago. She's a fitness trainer, and she's just turned 20 years old. I've done the Grand Canyon twice with her, and she works for Kenyon Sills Next Step CrossFit down in Bakersfield. And she has a new clothing line with Blackwater nutrition drinks or something out of Visalia. And she's a person that keeps a mentor book, a log, and she's brought other kids that she's gone to church with at Canyon Hills, taking other friends and family and people who want to accomplish something, and help people's dreams come true with the resources that you have. You know, just follow what's good. Everything else is going to just be a good experience for you.
Right, and I think, you know, we could probably talk for days, especially if we start getting stories of Mount Whitney. But I want to kind of transition a little bit for the Grand Canyon, because this sounds like I thought you just go to the Grand Canyon and just look, you know, get out the car and look over the side there. But you're actually hiking down there. Is that like a week-long trip? Is that a one-day? How are
You know, I've done this now 3 times, the same area, and every trip it's a different trip. First time I took 4 gentlemen with me, Blair Badai, a lighting expert, Shannon Grove's assistant Javier Reyes, Aaron Resnick, who's he's an architect and a chaplain, and James Minyard, who was 73 years old. And the first time, I ended up going down twice, bringing 2 of them back up. They kind of scattered. Great experience. So the second time, James's goal was to make it across. So we started at the Kebab Trail on the South Rim, and we made it through and went down to the Colorado River, and we came back up the Bright Angel. And it was life-changing. He turned 74 years old on that, and that's about 19 miles. Absolutely incredible. Weather changes. Every step is just a reminder of how God is great.
Yeah, that's just kind of amazing. You know, and really what I get the sense of, we might just get the afternoon or the morning time to start with a hike just right here at the Rademacher Hills, or heading right up into Walker Pass and some of these areas that are real near, and building up.
Yes.
and getting that dream going and getting more involved in the outdoors. It's
You
such
bet.
a great way to get going. I think we're just about ready for another break. So again, this is Ridgcrest Talk. Your host Paul Vender talking with Rockwell. Come over to Bakersfield. We want to talk about some of the hiking and outdoors fun that everybody can get involved with. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Ridgcrest Talk. We're having some fun with the outdoors with Rockwell. Come over from Bakersfield to talk about hiking Mount Whitney and Grand Canyon. Sometimes we just have an adventure we never expect. I once had a pony get out, and I hiked all the way up over to 395 following his footprints. It took me 4 hours on the 4th of July.
Wow.
And I finally found him. Back then we didn't have cell phones.
Sure.
And so by the time I got him back into town, I had a full day of hiking. I didn't go out in the desert again for a number of months.
Wow.
But some of these adventures, you're talking about the Grand Canyon, 500 miles just to get there.
Sure.
And then you're hiking. How long does that take to do the hike?
Depends on what condition yourself is in and who your hike mates are, and also the weather conditions, are very important out there. But, you're looking at about an 8-9 hour drive right off the top. There's not a lot of places to even go eat when you get there, if you're going to get there at sunrise. And so you got Williamsburg area and stuff. There's a McDonald's and a service station. And you go in, you better be prepared. Bring your stuff. Bring plenty of water out there. Be really self-contained for the most part. When you go on the south rim of Bright Angel, or the KBAB Trail, and you're going to come up the Bright Angel, you're going to hit the Colorado River. You can even cross over it. There's a couple of bridges right down there. But you've got to figure, overall with recovery, preparation, and everything, figure yourself 48 hours to make your trip. Don't rush, drive safe, don't speed, and just really focus on health and safety first.
So you're doing something like what, leaving at 8 p.m. and getting there at 4 or 5 in the morning?
Exactly.
And then you're not driving the whole way yourself, right?
Yeah, I never go alone on a trip like that. And you should always hike with somebody. Things happen, just flat out. That's common sense out there. And we go ahead and start the trip. So if I was going to go in somebody in your shape and something like that, we would probably do the 19 miles, and we probably average a mile and a half an hour or so. So we might do the 19 miles in, say, 12 hours, depending on, of course, in today's world, we got to do a few selfies and hold those guitars up and take some of those things that help capture part of our life and our memories.
Right. And I lived in Hawaii for a while, and I noticed that people just being in Hawaii, which is so isolated,
Right.
They would have a vacation sometimes every 3 months. They'd come
Sure.
over to Vegas or Seattle or wherever. But it wasn't the vacation so much, it was talking about it.
Right.
It was knowing, okay, 2 more months, okay, 1 more month, I'm going. and they wanted to get off that rock.
Right.
And I kind of get that same sense. This is an adventure. You're planning it. You're going to do it. You got to
Yes.
get ready for it. You can't just
just
sit in a desk job
Right.
every day until then. You got to start getting in shape. Great thing to do. I always tell people, instead of going into the fitness centers are nice, but instead of going in there every day, get outdoors.
There's some great local hikes. You've got some in Ridgcrest. I love a place called Jar Trail, just east of Merle Haggard's old house, at the canyon entrance on the right-hand side. Are phenomenal out there. But you definitely want to, perform within your means, because literally somebody in great shape on a first hike with just acclimation as far as the elevation, they can black out. And when you have a 500 or 1,000 foot drop, it's death. You can fall off a 6-foot ladder. So it's a matter of being careful out there.
Right. Now, so on the Grand Canyon, how many times have you hiked that now?
3 times. So I've gone the full trail, the KBAB, and come up the Bright Angel twice. And then the very first time was actually down past Skeleton Point, I think it was. And that's where one of our team says, it's time, go back up. So then a few hours later, we get a call, and a cell phone call from one of the guys stuck at the bottom, and he says, Rockwell, I can't make it. And Ranger Station said unless it was life or death, it'd be a few hours before they could launch a rescue. So they put me on a bus, went to the other side. It was my first time, so kind of shooting blind on this. Went down and finally connected with them with a few miles, and then Javier and I made it up. There's a lot of good pointers, and occasionally I do classes in trouts, and I should do them in some of the outlying communities too. And so if people want to reach me for any of these classes, you can just email me at the Rockwell Opry. So it's THE Rockwell Opry, OPRY at yahoo.com. And I also have a Facebook that's kind of for this also, which is FitFest, FITFEST. It's in Kern County, so FitFest. Ask to join the group. And we also have Mount Whitney red, white, and blue guitars. So any one of those would kind of get you versed. And if somebody is going to go and they have an extra slot or something like that, give me a call, 661-565-3030. Shoot me a text and let me know if you have an extra slot or if you're looking for people that can fill a slot to help kind of reduce expenses for your trip and maybe be a little bit safer.
Right, and that's kind of a difference compared to a lot of television where you're sitting there watching something that's in New York or LA that's not really personable.
Sure.
Here's somebody who's coming right here to Ridgcrest who's saying, hey, if you're interested, if you've got a group of friends, if you have a challenge that you want to do, a particular person, a particular thing, you might be able to help them out with it.
I love it. Bring it on. I saw this American Express commercial the other day, and it showed this guy, I think, off El Capitan. I've got to memorize his name. And he swung out. He's like 1,000 feet in the air, it seems. So I've already started assembling a group that would like to do this off some local high areas that we're going to do very safe and very organized. I've got together with Sports Soleil and checked out the gear, the safety harnesses, and everything like that. But how amazing to just explore the different activities that we have in Kern County. So it's endless. I'm also the crew chief for the Race Across America on Joe Peterson's team, which is Kern Wheelman Make-A-Wish. And it's to interact with some of these people and finish line bikes on Stockdale Highway. It's connecting relationships with each other and helping us to build relationships with nature and certainly what's in here and up there.
Right, and so just a lot of different ways to get a hold of you,
Yes.
Whether it's hiking Mount Whitney, going to Grand Canyon, getting some insight if a group wants to do it on their own,
Yes.
or if they want to tag along and get in with one of your groups.
Absolutely.
Or just to say, hey, I'm interested, but what are the options?
And what can I do what else can I add to my bucket list? So if you want to go skydiving, let's get together. You want to do Whitney or Grand Canyon or something out in Utah, let's connect with each other and build our community and build some great, healthy activities.
And one of the guests we had was one of our local mountain climbers doing the freehand and some of those types of things.
Wow.
And I'm just starting to see some of his Facebook posts with this
Sure.
time of year getting back out there. And I'll tell you, there really is a lot of things to do. People want to say, oh, there's nothing to do, but
It's endless.
yeah, you got to get outside the door. You got to turn off your video game and go outside.
And a
do
great
something.
thing at my nightclub Trouts, we run digital displays of all these pictures, so you could be famous indefinitely by just capturing these photographs on your event.
That sounds great. Well, I think we're just about out of time. I really appreciate you coming on over and talking with us. This is Ridgcrest Talk. Your host, Paul Vender, with Rockwell, coming all the way over from Trouts, Oildale, in the Bakersfield area. And you have a great evening.
God bless.